We are live again with the Big Stick Policy Podcast, episode 2. How you feeling about that, Graham?
I'm feeling awesome. I
Yeah.
thought the first one went really well, and
You
I'm
like the
excited to
first
get.
one?
I
Yeah.
thought it was great.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
hope you guys all thought it was great. Whoever of you have watched it already, highly recommend you check it out. We talk about George Washington and we kind of just goof off and stuff, which was fun. But yes, I am your host, Sean. I'm here with my co-host, the lovely Graham. Say hi to the
What's going
people,
on,
Graham.
fellas? Excited to
Yeah.
be here.
So, as we are going in chronological order of presidents, we will be now speaking on to our second president, the first one-term president, actually, John Adams. So,
Whoop whoop,
yeah.
big man.
So, Graham, explain to me a little bit. What do we know about John Adams? What makes him so cool?
John Adams. All right,
Yeah.
big. Just like George Washington, he was a founding father,
Mm.
and he was the first Federalist president. We mentioned it last episode how we had the Federalist Party, and then we had the Anti-Federalists. So, John Adams was really the face of the Federalists, and he runs.
He was kind of like, I guess he was one of the he was a high national like Federalist, like he was high in the national government. But I would say more of the face of the Federalist was Hamilton, but he's
That
definitely
is
up there.
true.
That is true.
That is
Hamilton.
true.
It's more Federalist, is more like Hamilton versus Jefferson, but Adams, he's definitely a big player,
Adams is a big
obviously.
player.
Yeah.
So, as we were saying, he runs against Jefferson and Adams wins, so that makes him the second president of the United States. And like Washington, he sets a few precedents, but like a lot of the first few presidents follow him, he's really just following Washington's lead. He's really just trying to appeal to the people, just trying to perform to the best of the ability that he can.
Yeah. I'm just sipping on some hot chocolate here.
Delicious.
Dude, absolutely delicious. But yeah, what do we know about John Adams? So, obviously, comes into prominence during the American Revolution. He has a few notable events that he does, or he plays a part in the American Revolution. Probably the biggest is what we were talking about before. Me and Graham, or Graham and I were talking about before, was that he defended the British soldiers who were involved in the Boston Massacre. So, with that, basically, we all know what the Boston Massacre is. There's like a protest between some American colonists, and they don't really like the British soldiers who are there, so they get all mad. It turns a little violent, and the British start firing or shooting some of the American colonists. Some of them die. I forget how many. It's not too many. It's not like when they say Boston Massacre, it's not like a massacre. But
Yeah, it was kind of blown out of proportion.
Like 5 or 6 or something.
Yeah,
I don't even
huge.
remember. But yeah, we have a few people die. But John Adams is like, yo, we gotta show these guys that we're good too. We're not just gonna like execute them. Let's give them a fair trial. So, he defends them, which is pretty cool. He's very, I guess, almost honorable in that sense, defending the British, being an American colonist. But not many people are in favor of the British at this time. So, I guess, that's kind of, you expect how that goes, But yeah, Adams, that's like his big breakout thing. He's a lawyer from
Harvard.
Yeah,
big
Harvard.
Man.
He goes to Harvard. Big Harvard man. That's a college, right, Graham?
Yeah, that's a college.
Well, that's like a... You think I could get into Harvard?
I think you could.
I could? Nah, man. I think you could, bro.
I don't know, man. I mean,
did you apply there?
I didn't actually, but I don't know. Maybe maybe I could do, late action.
Late.
You could see.
You had early action. I'm gonna apply late
action.
It's just that good. They gotta admit you for the fall term.
I think I could get lucky.
Yeah. You got in a few colleges. I think.
Yeah, I got into
just add another to the list.
Yeah, it might as well. Just for the clout.
Well. For the clout. That's what we're gonna do. I think we're gonna be able to. None of us can afford Harvard.
That is true.
That is very expensive. Very expensive school. I'm not trying to go into debt, you feel. But yeah. So, Adams has that going on. So, Adams is like we said before, prominent member of the Federalist Party. And I would say, he's the first president who affiliates with a political party. You know, Washington he was an independent. He wasn't part of either party. He favored the Federalists, though, I would say, but he wasn't really part of either party. He had a bipartisan cabinet, if you will, with both Hamilton as a Federalist and Jefferson as a Democratic Republican, which we got to address. So, you had those anti-Federalists before, right? You know what I'm talking about? They're like,
Yeah,
we don't
I
like
know.
the Constitution. But that was kind of their only thing. So, a bunch of those guys reform into the Jefferson-led Democratic Republicans who kind of oppose the kind of strong central government sentiment that you find in the Federalist Party, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of there. They're more of like they kind of focus on like, the states over the federal government because they're like, we want more power for our states, and the Federalists are like, no, and they just kind of don't like each other a lot. So yeah, Jefferson's head of that, Hamilton's head of that. Adams is a very powerful Federalist, as he's the vice president at that point, you know. But I mean, like in terms of like power that he didn't really have that much. Like the vice presidency was a very ceremonial role. Like they didn't have like a lot of power. You'd argue that today the vice president has a lot more power, obviously, as the office has evolved. But back then, vice president was kind of just like the participation trophy, because this was also before you could like run with like a vice presidential ticket, like how and in elections these days, you have two candidates, they run, they get nominated, and then they pick a VP candidate, a vice president. Well, back then, you see, before that, um, the VP was just the guy who came in second place. So, yeah, it's like a participation trophy. But, yeah, but he and Washington, they kind of ally in many of their views. So they're pretty chill together, even though Washington's kind of like distant. Like they're not super close. He's just kind of there hanging out. But so yeah, Washington doesn't seek a third term because he doesn't want it. He wants to go back to his home and just hang out and then die, which he does. He dies in like 1799. But Adams runs. So Adams becomes president. He's the second president. He only serves one term, like we said before. He is actually voted out of office when a certain other individual who we will talk about later becomes president, but I'm not going to spoil that, even though you can't really have spoilers
My man.
for a thing that happened a couple centuries ago. But yeah, we'll keep you guys waiting. So, he becomes president. So, who becomes his VP? Graham, you want to explain that?
So, as we were saying before, the
Yeah.
person who comes in second place becomes the vice
Yeah.
president. So, in that election, it was Adams versus Jefferson.
Mm.
So, Jefferson becomes his vice president. And this is very interesting because, as we said before, they're from two different political parties. They
Mm.
have two very different sets of beliefs. They have two agendas that they want to accomplish. And as you can see throughout the presidency, Jefferson really tries to undermine Adams a lot throughout his presidency. And this really leads to, as you can see, how they were actually very good friends before the presidency, but
Mm.
afterwards, during Adams' presidency, they become very bitter rivals. And it's unfortunate to see something like this because you really hope as an American to see your government just working together, trying to benefit you. But you can really see how they're really just fighting each other for control.
Mm. Well said, well said. But yeah, so, like Graham said, they're part of two different political parties. So they kind of become bitter rivals in that way. Later on, they'll become more, I guess, they'll kind of rekindle their friendship after they're both out of office because they're like, what the hell, why not? It's kind of stupid that we would base our entire relationship off of our differing political views. But yeah, that's basically kind of the vibe of Jefferson and Adams back then. But a lot of things happened under Adams' presidency because, as he said before, he only serves one term. So let's kind of see why that is, because there's one really big thing that happens during the Adams presidency that everyone knows about, and it's very, very unpopular with many people. So, as we'll get to that first, we are going to start with another little thing that happens. I would say, in terms of importance, it's pretty important. We can learn about it. It is the Xyz Affair. So, let me explain to you all what that is, what that means, because everyone's like, what the hell? What the hell do these letters have to do with John Adams? So, let me tell you. During Adams' presidency, there's a little thing going on in Europe called the French Revolution. So, the French, they're like, hey, that thing America did? You know the thing America did, Graham?
I think they
What'd they do?
I think they had a revolution.
They did have a revolution. So the French were like, we have a king. He's kind of an asshole. He's not very good at governing the country. Let's pull a United States and just get rid of him. So they're like, yeah, let's promote ideas of democracy and liberty and freedom and equality and all that stuff. And originally the Americans are like, yeah, that's cool. You guys can do that. That sounds pretty cool. We'll support you. And then they're like, oh my God, they are killing everyone. So the revolution becomes very violent, as the stereotypical executions by guillotine, which happen all the time. The king gets executed, his head gets chopped off, becomes very violent. And Adams is like, that's kind of whack. Why are you guys doing that? And they're like, we gotta overthrow our government because they suck and we want to put in a new one. So with democracy, but he's like, you guys are just killing everyone. That's not very wholesome of you guys to do. So what happens, Adams is afraid that because the Americans don't want to support France anymore, because they have this whole thing where the French are like, hey, you guys should support us in our war against Britain, because they're fighting Britain, because Britain's now scared that their monarchy is going to get overthrown, like the French, because they're like, we don't want this to happen to us. Let's go kick these new French government's butt to show them that we mean business. And the French are like, hey, we helped. They go to America. They're like, hey, we helped you guys in our. We helped you guys in your revolution. Why don't you guys help us in ours? And we're all like, no. And they're like, what do you mean no? We had a treaty. And America is like, well, our treaty was with your old government, which is now gone because you kind of chopped the old guy's head off. So that treaty's null and void, as they would like to say. And the French, they're not too happy about this, because they help us out a lot in our revolution. In many ways, you can make the argument that the American Revolution would not have been able to be successful without the help of the French, because the French offer a lot of military supplies and training and good leaders and stuff. And the French, they're like, yeah, we want some of that back because we're kind of going to war with Britain, and we're just we're not down for that. We're still a developing country in many ways, but that kind of stuff happens. So where's this coming now? So our foreign policy is not very good with France, or relations with them. It's not very good because they're mad that we won't support them against Britain and all that stuff. So in order to try to I guess, bolster relations between the French and the Americans, John Adams sends a few guys to go to Britain, I mean, not Britain, France, to kind of negotiate with them, see if they can come to a common understanding about all this stuff. So, our guys, they show up in France, right? And they're hanging out. They're like, when do we get to meet with the French leaders? So then, the French guys, they send some other guys over to meet with the Americans. And the Americans are like, what is this? We thought we were going to meet with the French leader. But they're like, you guys got to give us tribute first. So you guys have to give us a bunch of money, and then you can meet with our leader. And the Americans, they're not having it. They're not having it. Graham, when you're not having something?
Oh, I know.
When you're not having something, you're like, you're not having it?
Exactly.
Yeah, they weren't having it. So
We're having it.
they go back to John Adams. They're like, we're not having it. They want us to pay all this money to speak with the leader. And John Adams is like, yo, this is some bullshit. I don't want to do that. So he releases a statement. He's like, yeah, the negotiations with France, they kind of failed because they were a bunch of bitches. And maybe I'd say, I'm going to go pump up our defense and stuff. And everyone's like, why are you pumping up defense? Are we going to war with France? And he's like, I'll never tell. And we actually end up never going to war with France. We kind of have like a quasi-war with them. We never actually declare war against France. We're just like on really bad terms with them at this point. But, that kind of happens. Adams is like, the French and their revolutions. It's
disgusting.
Like, it's like the American Revolution is like McDonald's, right? The all-American, the cool, the mainstream, I guess, revolution. And the French Revolution, that's like Burger King. It's like the second place. Like, no one, who wants to go to who actually eats at Burger King? Graham, you ever eat at Burger King?
Very few times.
I've never eaten at Burger King.
They're just so close.
Yeah.
But they're just not the real deal.
Yeah, they're not the real deal. It's like
They're
fake McDonald's. There. Yeah. It's like
fake McDonald's.
Weird, yeah. And then you have Wendy's, which is like, I don't know, what would be the Wendy's of revolutions? Like,
maybe that uprising they had in Vietnam.
Vietnam? When the hell did that happen?
Forget when.
Me too.
But
I was gonna say the Haitian Revolution, but I don't know.
Yeah,
That's because that's the only other revolution I remember happening around then, which actually kind of worked, but it's not, I guess, too good in the long run because
not the real deal.
Kind of not doing too well right now, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But yeah, that happens during John Adams' presidency, and everyone's like, "Yo, for the French, they're kind of not with it. They're not with us." So yeah. Now, main thing that happens under the Adams presidency. Now, Graham's going to go into a lot more detail on this, but little known thing everyone knows about with the John Adams presidency, and that is the Alien and Sedition Act. So I'm going to let Graham take this one because he's kind of the man when it comes to this thing. So Graham, take it away on the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Yeah, I mean, they call me Mr. Alien and Sedition Act, but
is that what they call you?
Yeah, that's what they call me.
They call you Mr. Alien and Sedition Acts?
That's what they call me.
Why is that?
Because, as you said before, I'm an expert on the Alien Sedition Acts. Everything else I tune out. But when we're learning about the Alien Sedition Acts, I'm tapped in.
You're zoned in.
I'm zoned in, 100%.
You're like a German soldier on meth.
If the AP Gov exam makes the mistake of making a question about the Alien Sedition Acts, it's over.
Yeah.
It's 100. It's an automatic 100.
You're going to get that 5.
I'm going to get that 5.
Yeah.
So, as Sean was saying, Adams becomes unpopular, and one of the big things is the Alien Sedition Acts.
Yeah.
So they are a series of 4 laws. They're passed by Congress in the year 1798. And this was as a result of the fear of war with France. Now, Adams brings these And so overall, these laws, pretty much what they do is, as they're called, Alien Sedition Acts, they pretty much focus on like restricting the activities, the actions of foreign residents, and also like just limiting the speech of Americans, specifically the press.
Oh yeah.
So, as you're saying, with the press, they have a whole thing where you can be jailed or fined or punished just for speaking out against the American government.
Hmm.
And this just causes a huge uproar because one of the staples of American democracy is just the ability for free speech. And
Yeah.
Adams is pretty much just taking this away. You know, he's not taking it all away, but he's just saying like, say one bad thing and we're gonna punish you.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the where it focuses on foreign residents, the alien part. This is, people in America of other foreign descent, and they are viewed as, spies or traitors, people just trying to undermine the
Mm.
US government.
Yeah.
And this was, a focus because Adams was afraid of war with France. And he was thinking, well, if the French are in here trying to undermine us, we could be in some serious trouble. So with the Alien Acts, he makes it possible for him to be able to deport people based on believing that they are trying to undermine the government, that they're
Mhm.
against the United States. And this is just just like the free speech. America is the melting pot. It's a country where everyone is welcome. All cultures are brought in, and
Mm.
they want to live the American life. But Adams makes it clear that, hey, if you're not with us, you're not with us. If you're here to mess up our country, we don't want you here. And this is just unfortunate because a lot of people become victims of these laws. A lot of newspapers suffer. A lot of foreigners suffer. They're deported,
Yeah.
and they just want a better life in America. But because some people believe they shouldn't live here, you know, they call them out. They say, hey, these people were talking about, being spies, or they're sending information back to foreign countries, and the U.S. government is just like, well, you got to leave now.
Mm.
And this is just really tough legislation, and it just doesn't sit well with a lot of people, which is one of the main reasons why he is ultimately voted out.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfectly said. The people, they like their First Amendment, and you try to take that away, it's not going to go well with them. So, yes, Adams passes this. It's eventually repealed at some point. I think it's either at the end of I think it's the beginning of the Jefferson presidency that it's repealed. I'm
Yeah.
not entirely sure. That's true?
Yes.
Yes. So, beginning of Jefferson presidency, that's repealed. Adams is voted out eventually. Adams, another thing we got to mention, the White House is actually being built during his presidency. He doesn't really get to stay at it all too much because it's still like under construction. But it's getting there. That like whole capital area of DC is kind of underway, which wasn't that a compromise they did for the financial plan being passed?
I
Was that
believe it was.
Yeah, it was they moved the capital to DC to
Oh
get
yeah,
that.
well they made
Yeah, yeah,
that to make the South and the North to appease both sides, because the
yeah,
South
yeah,
was afraid, hey, you can't have everything in the North because that's not fair.
yeah, because the
So it
capital
was
was
just
like
their way of
Philly.
making everything even.
Hmm. So yeah, yeah. So hold on, I'm gonna burp right now. Oh my god, dude, the hot chocolate. That's
Coming
that's
back.
that's it's bussin' right now, dude. It's bussin'. But yeah, it's a little treat for all you listeners right now. But yeah, um, Adams passes this. It's not cool because he restricts the First Amendment in a lot of ways. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Freedom of press is pretty cool. You know, Ram, what do you think about the the press?
You know, Unfortunately, it's a staple of
Unfortunately.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big part of,
yeah,
of the First
big part of
Amendment.
that. Yeah, you know. So yeah, Adams is voted out, and Jefferson becomes president after him. He becomes the first Democratic Republican president, and we'll talk more about him. But he ultimately kicks off a little known period as the era of good feelings. My favorite name for a era in American history, because it's just like the era of good feelings. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny to me. I don't know.
Everything's good.
You know, they're vibing. They're just vibing, you know, besides that whole War of 1812 thing.
Let's not talk about that.
Let's not talk about that yet. We'll get to that, though, when we get to some of those other guys. But, yeah, so Adams, after his presidency, he and his wife, Abigail, kind of go off and do their own thing. Now, this is when Adams starts, what does he do? He goes into retirement, you know, and he starts talking to Jefferson again. Like we said, they rekindle their little friendship, you know. They start talking. They're like, yeah, the past, our whole beef was kind of whack, and they agree on that. And funny enough, Adams and Jefferson both die on the same day. And that day was July 4th, Independence Day, that's insane to me. You ever think about how crazy that is, Graham?
Kind of. I mean, yeah, that's incredible.
Dude.
You know, two very big founding fathers of the United States, and they die on July 4th, one of the most important days in American history.
Dude, it could only be topped by us dying on the same day.
Definitely.
We gotta sync up our deaths, Graham.
All right, definitely. I don't know how we'll do that.
For all you listeners, our birthdays are actually 2 days apart.
That is true.
Graham is 2 days older than me.
I am.
Even though I'm like half a foot taller than him.
And you're way more mature than me.
In years. That's debatable. I'm very much a man-child, but you know, who isn't these days? You know, in this crazy world we live in, you gotta have some kind of insanity to kind of survive. But yeah, you know, we should definitely think about syncing up our deaths.
Definitely. What day will we die?
What day are we picking? I don't even know. What's a good day?
You know, I'm a big Halloween guy.
You want to die on October 31st? Dude, I'm down.
I think that'd be tough.
I'm down. We gotta sync that up.
All right.
How do we gotta sync our like body clocks?
I'll see you in like 90 years, right?
90 years. Dude, longer than that. You know how long people are gonna live when we get to the future?
How long you think?
A lot. I know the scientists believe that the first person to live to 150 has already been born.
Wow.
I remember seeing that somewhere.
You know what we should do? We should freeze our bodies.
Like
and we should
cryostasis?
And thaw out in the future.
Dude.
And see what the future is
like.
Dude,
that'd be sick, dude.
I think we should do that.
We should absolutely do that. That'd be fun.
Be awesome.
Like right before, like in our like final years, we freeze each other, or we freeze ourselves. And then we just wait until the future, and then we open up, and then we use our last couple years to just walk around in the future, being like, yeah.
And then we could just catch up on all the presidents we missed too.
Dude, we could restart the series after we finish with 46. Good old. Newly elected Joe Biden, newly inaugurated.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Big Joe. The man, the myth. Big Joe.
Big Joe.
As some people call him, Sleepy Joe. Oh god, yeah. If y'all are listening in the future, the politics was
awesome.
Hella whack.
Awesome.
It was awesome back here. Oh man, that was nuts. But yeah, you know. What other some cool stuff about John Adams? We only got a little bit more time left, but his son, John Quincy Adams, JQA, if you will, becomes president later. You know, he's the first, I guess, father of a president. We only have like one other of those, being the wonderful George H.W. Bush.
Oh yes.
Bush 41, if you will. Big Bush. Bush quail, you know.
Big Bush man.
You know, he only serves one term, which is cool, I guess. But yeah, you know, his son becomes president eventually. What else happens? Oh, he doesn't own slaves. He is one of the first presidents
of the 12 first U.S. presidents. Him and Quincy don't own slaves.
They don't own slaves, that's pretty cool. He actually he was very opposed to slavery, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was kind of, you know.
He was into that, you know, northern mindset, you know, big industry guy against slavery.
yeah, So yeah, that was very cool of him, which is pretty sick. So we have hit our time threshold for talking about the main man, second president, John Adams. We hope you all enjoyed. Next week, episode 3, we will be discussing the third president, Thomas Jefferson,
The
and
man.
all the shenanigans going on with that man, because he's pretty nuts.
Awesome.
He's pretty crazy. All right. This is Big Stick Policy. Signing off. Say bye to the people, Graham.
Have a good one, fellas. Hope you guys enjoy.
And we'll
hit the like button.
Hit the
subscribe.
Subscribe, favorite,
comment,
share with your friends.
Share with your friends. That's a big thing.
Big thing.
Word of mouth.
Spread the word.
So we live off of.
Yeah. We're like a grassroots movement, except
yes, we are.
A podcast on YouTube about presidents with 2 dudes who know absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I know a few things.
All right. Tune in next week. We are going to be talking about Thomas Jefferson, episode 3. And